The Birdie Board podcast is brought to you by the Birdie Board app, the easiest way to track matches, scores, and handicaps with friends. Now, here's your host, Corey, with another episode of the Birdie Board podcast.
Welcome back to the Birdie Board podcast. Back on the show is Jeff. Very excited to have him back here. One of my favorite things, the first time he was there, is just how much I learned in our conversation. I still remember the story you said about the basement mattress with practicing that. I don't know why, but that really stood out to me when you did that, because I just picture myself doing something like that, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. But so last time I actually introduced you to the podcast, so I'm sure some people are gonna remember that. But I thought this time, why don't you introduce yourself so we can hear who you are from your own words?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jeff Jones. I picked up a golf club when I was 13 years old. That was 52 years ago. Instantly fell in love with it. Started playing in high school, played in college, thought I was always going to get good, make the tour. Realized in college that while I was a skilled player, there were much more skilled players than me. Turned pro, started getting, going through the apprentice program for the PGA. I realized I didn't want to sell shirts. I didn't want to make tee times. I didn't want to do that thing. The only thing I really liked doing was teaching. So for the last, 40 years, that's all I've been doing is just out teaching. So I love my journey to learning the sport was, we oftentimes say people are self-taught. We go, oh yeah, I'm self-taught. Well, everybody is self-taught. Okay. I did it without guidance. Okay. So I like to provide guidance to people because I'm sure that I can help them shortcut the learning curve, and that's where I get the enjoyment from the time teaching is watching other people have smiles on their face because their balls go further and straighter and they shoot lower scores.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you got to college and what was there a defining moment that made you think like, oh, PGA is probably not quite for me, or is it just after playing with the guys you were playing with?
Yeah, I mean, the defining moment, I played with our number one player on the team. He's a great guy. And I played three consecutive days. He shot 64, 66, 65. He just didn't look like he was blinking. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm struggling to shoot 74 here. I'm 10 down to this guy. I'm like, maybe a real job would be would be the ticket.
Yeah. I guess that's the one way you can kind of stay in golf. So, do you remember like what you thought the biggest difference was between you and him at the time?
Oh, 100%. One was speed.
Really?
Okay. I didn't, I grew up in Western Colorado, short golf courses at altitude. You can hide with the lack of speed. I had a decent little short game. I could get up and down a lot and in there. I went played junior college golf in Arizona. Courses were longer. I didn't have altitude, a lot more bunkering up front. And all of a sudden I was like in my mind going, oh wow, this is a lot more difficult. And nowadays, we taught accuracy back in the day until this kid came, out on the face of the planet called Tiger Woods, and all of a sudden people are like going, "Oh wow, look, this is what we do." And so now, if you're teaching and you're not teaching speed, you're killing people because if you want to make par, that's a win, right? A birdie is a big win, a bogey is a loss, a double bogey is a huge loss. You have to have speed.
Yeah.
If you have ball speed, you are armed and dangerous to beat the hole. Without ball speed, you're gonna get whacked around.
Yeah, so probably a good transition then, because as you know, one of the things I'm focusing on for this podcast is just what can we do during the winter. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come back on the show, because what better advice than from a PGA professional can we get? So I wanted to start off this podcast is just starting to talk about why winter practice really works. And I'll just start. What makes winter practice different than in season practice outside of just like the obvious weather difference for most of the country, unlike you in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a great thing. I mean, golfers, we're in love with the ball. Unfortunately, we want to just go interact with the ball. We love to, I mean, you get off work, you want to go hit it, and then you're frustrated, right? And then what happens when you start interacting with the ball is you become reactionary, you know. I mean, if you see something you like, you think, oh, it's all good, and then once you hit it bad. So I think when you go to the winner, right, you can really slow down, and you don't have to react to the ball flight because you're not going to have the ball flight. I mean, if you have an inside net, or you rig something up and hit into a mattress like I did, you have ball contact, you feel ball contact, but you can't see ball flight,
Do
right?
you think
So I
that's a
think
good thing for golfers in this?
sure. Yeah. I mean, you need a blend of, you need a blend of both. I mean, you need the feedback off of the flight ultimately to make adjustments. But the problem is that, you know, if you don't establish the core movement fundamentals, right? That's really the rush of golf. What's the great thing about golf is I'll air quote, you can enjoy it at any level. Okay. I don't think that some people shooting, 110s are having that much fun, but God bless them if they are. Okay. But you can get out there. And so if you take winter and you just slow it down, and maybe take like a 30-70 approach, spend, 30% of your time studying, not scroll tipping, on in there, but actually, find an instructor you trust, somebody who you think can dive in deep with you, and start learning your swing mechanics, start using video, recording yourself, and then get a deeper understanding. Because I think, I've always went for this thing of like UFO, in my mind, and it's not like, those things up there, okay. It's just a simple acronym for understanding. Do you understand the mechanics of the swing, how to generate speed, how to control the club face? And then two, on the secondary side of that, do you understand your faults or your tendencies? We all have a tendency to put the club in certain positions, even if we go, oh, I know I don't want it over there, but it tends to go over there, right? And then F is feeling. What is feeling? It's this kinesthetic awareness. It's this, you can't feel the wind, but it's out there. You can't put your hand on it and grab it, right? And then O is overlearn, right? Overlearn to the point where you're repetitive enough in your motions. So, you look at, driving 30 minutes over after work to the course, and then taking, 2.5 hours to play 9 holes and driving back. It's 3 hours. I mean, think about the amount of reps in the winter you could make, at your house. So
Mhm.
I think it's a good time to slow down, gain some understanding of your swing, gain a feel for what you're trying to do, and get some confidence, get some
Yeah.
trust in what you're doing. So when the snow comes off, then you're ready to rock.
So, all right. So I think about like a at-home setup, and it's similar to what you did in the basement, just mattress against the wall. I know it's pretty easy nowadays, just get like a golf net for $100 and hit into it, whether you can do it in your basement or garage or outside on hopefully a non-snowy day. What would someone be looking for? Because I know so many people are so trained to look at the ball flight to determine whether or not they had a good swing. So if you're not looking at the ball flight, what are some of the things that you can pick up on for like feedback?
Yeah, portable launch monitor. I
Hmm.
mean, when TrackMan and FlightScope first came out, the big units were 24,000. I mean, they priced out, unless you were a golf academy, a golf pro, a fitting place, you didn't have one. You can get a FlightScope Mevo, and or Foresight. You can find ones for 180, $190, right? So
Hmm.
it's not a massive investment, right? And you want the four main metrics, that you need. One is, it's going to tell you club head speed. So it's going to say, hey, how efficient is your body bringing the club in? Number two, it's going to track ball speed. Okay. And so that's just when we look at smash factor, okay, which is just ball speed, if you come in at 100 and the ball leaves at 140, then the difference is 1.4. That's the smash factor. And we know, 1.5 is considered the holy grail, perfectly hit. So anytime you can stay over 1.4 is good. So you got club head speed, you got ball speed. How efficiently did you transfer, smash factor? Okay. And then look at your spin rates, because your spin rates are going to tell you, was the ball overspun or underspun, right? And so we know that, I mean, distance comes on an XY axis between speed on one side and spin on the other side. So you put too much spin. Think baseball. Too much spin is a pop fly. Not enough
Yeah.
spin is a ground ball, and that perfect launch gets in the left field or right field bleachers.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you don't necessarily need a monitor that can be high end like TrackMan, just enough to give you some of those basic statistics to get you practicing through the winter.
Yeah, that's a great. I think it's a great investment. I mean, we're getting close to Christmas, so
Exactly.
ask your wife, your girlfriend, or just say, "Hey, I deserve this. I want one myself." Because I said for a couple $100, because then when you take it to the golf course, it's also going to be you can translate it's easy to look up and you go, okay, what's tour rate spin numbers for my driver, for
Yeah.
example. And so, excuse me, once you start going to the course and you're hitting with it and you're checking out the feedback, you go, okay, I can see what that visually looks like to me.
Hmm.
Back in my day without those, we look, I was always like a height guy. I was like, okay, that if my drive is going towards the eighth floor of the hotel,
Yeah.
okay, that's good. If it's down there at the fourth, it's too low. If it's up at the 12th floor, it's too high. But
That makes sense.
I would definitely get one of those. A port. You don't have that. It's great if you got the whole setup. The
Yeah.
ball, travels and you can play a course doing it, but you don't need to. You can hit it in the net and get the feedback on that. That's great feedback for them.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, so this is good then. So let's imagine they at least have some sort of feedback they can get from a net or from a simulator or even just some basic numbers, whatever works in their budget. I know that when you and I first talked about an outline, we even talked about like some of the things you could do even before you start hitting the ball. And one of those is like the setup and starting position. So I know you mentioned this is one of the easier ways to just improve your consistency. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, grip stance, posture, ball position, and alignment. Right? That's the five tools that come in there. I'll quote Jack Nicklaus because he's probably certainly more credible than me. Jack said in one of his books, he said, I played with amateurs around the world for 40 plus years, and I can tell you that 75 to 80% of every bad golf swing I saw an amateur make was directly related to a poor starting position. Now he's got 4 decades of playing with people. I've got 4 decades of watching people play, and you can pick it out. Rarely, do you see somebody where you just walk up on them and you go, okay, the grip is good, the posture is good, the setup is good, the alignment's good, how they came into the ball, just the whole mojo of coming into the ball and getting set. Right.
Hmm.
Okay. When you see that good, you're expecting to see a nice swing. And when you look over and you go, well, the grip's out of position, the posture, the arms are the wrong, something's in there. It's like 75 to 80%. I mean, you're already down to you only got a quarter left of your dollar.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and so that starts leading to, because what's a poor setup going to lead to? Is a poor takeaway, a poor position at the top.
Yeah.
Being a self-guided learner, the one thing that I focus on is I always ask myself, and I go, okay, if I can start perfect and get to the top perfect, I was like, how long do I have to, the whole downswing was 0.3 seconds. So I'd ask myself, I go, okay, how much can you screw up in 0.3 seconds to be
That's a
perfect?
great point.
And then I would
Exactly.
go, one time my brain would go, not much. And then I would
Yep.
ask myself, I go, oh, if you're not in a good position, how much can you fix in 0.3 seconds? And I go, oh, not much. Okay. It's the same
It's so
answer.
true.
So, we love to apply that. We love to apply the speed. We love to see the ball fly. Okay. But I mean, wow, talk about it. You segued into a perfect thing for the winter. Hey, work on your setup, grip stance, posture, alignment, ball positioning. Learn how to get that perfect in there and learn how to take and get the club, loaded up into the right position. Can you get your body in position? Can you get your arms in position, the club face in position? And then you got 0.3 seconds. When you
Yeah.
step on the gas, then something good's going to happen.
So what are some of the most common problems you see with people setup?
Well, yeah, boy. I mean,
I'm sure you see a lot.
all the above. I mean, look, without a great grip, you have no chance. Okay, because I mean, the grip goes to wrist function, right? And you think about the wrist. The wrist is such a beautiful tool that we have in our body because it goes 4 ways, right? You have flexion, extension, radial, ulnar deviation, up, down, in, and out, right? The human body doesn't have any other, if you rotate, you're either rotating up or down. You're rotating in or out. That's your choice. You have, we don't have any other options with our body except the wrist control and the hand control, right? And I think this is why you see people, on TV and you go, well, they don't look the same, but they're generating high ball speeds and obviously they're great players. Okay. There's none of them in there who have poor wrists.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So
yeah, you just simply can't, hack motion is one who has wrist control sensors they used to be up in the $1,000 range. They're coming down in price in there. And it gets a little bit confusing to look at all the graphs on there. Okay. I'm just saying is if you get that club in the winter, if you get the club in your hand every day and you start, where do you want to have the club in certain positions in your swing and start to get your risk control, right? Because the risk control on the outside is where you get the speed, but it's also the most vulnerable, right? I mean, because your strength is going to be here on the inside, and then you're going to work to the outside of your body. What's going to be the weakest segment? The weakest segment is going to be the fastest segment, which would be your wrist control. So it's that, if you're bad in the wrist, yeah. Okay. But if you're bad in the wrist, that means what? Then your grip doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah.
So work on the grip and work on your posture.
Okay. So we've talked about grip, stance, stuff like that, but I know personally, whenever I start diving into making sure I get the good grip, wrists in right positions, things like that, I tend to forget about my body, and it ends up being it's just a whole arm swing rather than a nice sequence with my body. How can a golfer avoid kind of getting so focused in on just one part of their swing and forgetting that it still is a full swing?
Yeah, that's a good question because you have an inside section of your swing, which is just your framework, right? Your rib cage, your hips, your pelvis, your legs, your feet. And you have an outside section, which is your arms, your elbows, your wrists, shaft, the club out there. So it's really like coordinate. Like I always tell people, I go, hey, can you rub your stomach and pat your head? And yeah, like, oh, can you do two different things at the same time independently? So what's the great thing about arms? Hey, they have speed. What's the bad thing about them? They want to be in the driver's seat, and they really need to stay in position and work with your rotation. So this is where, this is again where another beautiful thing to do in the off season is learn how to get your body and your arms to sync up,
Do you have
right?
any
And
tips for that, especially with off-season training?
yeah, look, I'm one of these people. I'm one of these weird sort of people here. Okay. Like the way I look at it is your body has a front side and has a back side, right? The spine is in the center. You got an independent left, you got an independent right. So you put them on the club, and then now the front and the back are married. Okay. So when I do drills, if you look at most of the drills that I post, okay, they're either front side only drills, okay,
Mhm.
where I'm working just the front side, or they're backside only drills, okay, and then we marry the two together. I literally have found that like some people, if I give them a front side only rotation drill, okay, they'll do that and instantly they'll start their rotation will get better, their swing will get better, okay. Other people respond better to the trail side. So rather than, you would think everybody would be on the trail side, right? That's your dominant side. It's going to typically be your, right-handed player. It's going to be in the back, and that would be the one that, I would want to leverage the club with, and do stuff in there. So, I like to drill the front. I like to drill the back independently. I like to drill the inside. I like to drill the outside, and then try to marry them together. You know,
Mhm.
I guess that probably means I just define myself as slightly ADHD.
Yeah, just jumping all around, exactly. But it doesn't sound like it would be too hard to go through like sequence drills in the winter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, because yeah, you're looking to, anytime you practice or touch the club, what are you ultimately looking for? To learn something.
Hmm.
I always ask people, I go, hey, I'm going to practice today. And I go, okay, well, what did you learn? Because if you don't go there and learn something about you, right? Learn something about you. You can read stuff, you can watch stuff, but then you have to take that information and learn something about you. Because when you can assimilate the information and you can trust it, then you're going to play better.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so the wintertime is a great place to get a better set of knowledge and to gain more trust in what you're doing.
yeah, definitely. So, okay, so during winter practice, I know sometimes me and I know my friends, it's cold outside, their headspace isn't really in golf anymore, but I know just from being an athlete before in the past and talking to you, like that consistency every single day is really what's gonna lead you to be a better golfer next spring. Um, do you have any advice for people just trying to stay in a good rhythm throughout the winter to help improve their golf game, especially in the dark days of Northeast West winter?
Yeah, I mean, touch the club 5 to 6 days a week. Get something, get a little cheap mat or something that you can make contact with the ground in, so you can work on the ground. I mean, what a great way to develop confidence if you come in and you go, okay, I'm only going to take 5 minutes a day, for 6 days, okay, and in that 5 minutes, you can make 40 swings or whatever, okay, and just how does the club interact to the ground? How does it come to the ground? Right? We always go, oh, chunky, topped,
Yeah.
right? Okay, well those don't say anything. You go, oh, I'm coming to the ground too hard. Oh, I'm not getting to the ground, right? So you think about that when all of a sudden, every time you rotate, you can rotate the sole of the club and you can get it down to the ground and you can start to say, oh, wow, I'm having a great interaction. The sole of my club is having a great interaction with the ground. Then wow, that's great. Then you can take a little piece of chalk out of your closet right there somewhere, okay, and put a little line on your map that you're hitting out of, okay, and then say, okay, that's where now I'm touching the ground. Now I'm going to touch the ground more specifically right there.
I love that.
So
Yeah,
now
that's
you've got a
something
kind of
really practical they can do too.
yeah, golf is the golf swing is a pattern. It's a pattern and it's a weird pattern. Not only is it a difficult pattern with a lot of moving parts, it's a weird pattern that your brain, how many times, okay, 40 years, Corey, how many times do I go, wow, that person is just natural. They're just
Hmm.
hardly ever. It's like, some people learn it quicker than others, but I mean, I know for me, I did a lot of club throwing and a lot of uncolorful language coming out while I was learning, which I don't think it's natural in there. So the winter time, yeah, just plus I mean, who doesn't need a little, if you're stuck inside, you need a little physical movement there, go to your happy space downstairs, out in the garage, turn the heater on out there and make 5-10 minutes of reps and
Yeah,
you go, okay, hey, that's good. Your body will stay. I mean, obviously you can go to the gym and you can work on rotational stuff. You can try to increase your strength, your flexibility, all of those things. So, when you go to the gym, I mean, if you really are a hardcore golfer, make sure that part of your workout is like it's rotational based, that you go, okay, I can see that this will translate over, when March or April hits and the snow's off, then I'll be ready.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I often think about just my own golf game and what I'm going to be able to do. I just moved into a new house, so I have a spot in my basement I've been eyeing for some golf practice, and I've been thinking about your advice ever since our last podcast of just like getting the club in your hand for 5-10 minutes every day. And I've been anxious to get into my basement and start doing that. So that's going to be my Christmas break project is to clean up that basement so I could start doing that.
Nice. Yeah. Don't tell your wife anything. Just do it. And
Yeah, exactly. Just show
yeah.
up down there with the
Yeah.
club.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Yeah.
say to that point of touching the club every day,
Hmm.
I have three boys. My oldest son was a baseball player, and after high school, you know, he said, "Hey, I want to learn how to play golf." He said, "How should I do it?" And I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm going to give you a quick, brief 1 minute lesson, okay? And then I want you to practice that, okay, for 30, 40 minutes. And let's do that 7 straight days, okay, a week, okay? And let's do that over the whole summer, okay?
Hmm.
Because, he said, wait, going away to college, okay? So he had 90 days straight of, he had a 1 minute lesson, okay? And he practiced at least 30 minutes a day, okay? At the end of the summer, he was breaking 80. Okay.
Wow.
Now he's an athletic kid, and
Yeah,
my
but
youngest is,
still, I think the
yeah.
key with that is you're not doing information overload. I think people get lessons and they just sometimes sit there for 30 or 45 minutes with the instructor telling them every single mechanic of a golf swing. And then you don't see them for a week. And then you're expected to just practice all of it. Like, of course, you're not going to be able to retain it. Or maybe you don't get lessons right now and you're just going to YouTube and watching 20 minutes or 30 minutes of instruction and they make a motion that just can't be practiced that simply. It makes sense that it was more effective with a little bit of a shorter burst, but more frequent.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You've given me the great next podcast idea if you'll have me back on of why the
Oh, I'm
why
sure I
the
will.
why does the 1 hour lesson model fail 99% of the people? I'm saying this and I've been getting paid for doing this my whole life, okay? But in an actual 1 hour lesson, there's probably 5 minutes of instruction.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, if you're a good instructor, if you're not a good instructor, you babble and then you get into this point, right? And so short bursts or short pieces of information are good, but it has to come with a plan. That's the problem with the YouTube and the Instagram and all that. It's short bursts of information, but chapter one has to go to chapter two to three to four to five. Okay. So when I was teaching my son, I had a definite plan of like, okay, this should be learned, golf should be built in a specific order. It was a specific order. I'm a person that builds the inside and the outside. I alternate my short tips with work something on the inside, work something on the outside, work something on the front, work something on the back. And you just keep rotating. And so this way you're kind of hitting on all different sides of the body, and then the player can take and assimilate those together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this makes sense too, because I originally found you on YouTube and I
Mhm.
know that you have good content and a lot of good drills on there. Um, can you tell everyone what your YouTube channel is and if there's anywhere else that they can find you?
Find me. It's, most of the stuff I post is under rightstartgolf.com. Um, I, I started off and I have a huge junior golf background. I mean, I run one of the largest after school golf programs in the U.S. I started 30 years ago, and I have a passion for the great thing about junior golf development. One, they're not in a hurry because, they don't have jobs, they don't have wives, they don't have mortgages, and they have a lot of time. So in there, so when I started getting posting stuff on the internet, I was posting stuff that's in my brain that I teach. Okay. But then I realized there's 1,600,000 people over there posting stuff, trying to sell stuff. So, if you look at my stuff on there, Right Start Golf, you'll see a lot of a junior golf slant to it. Do I teach adults? I do teach adults. Okay. And most of the stuff I do online in there is I take the lesson model and I fraction it. Okay. I
Mhm.
fraction it into, two video analysis per month, and then the other two off weeks are specific drills and drill evaluations. So it comes back to what we talked about. The more you interact with your instructor, no matter who you use, the better off you'll be.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
problem is if they're charging 100, 125, $150 an hour, and you start going, well, twice a month in there, all of a sudden you start going, well, that's a lot of money, and I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
definitely.
think online it's easier to fraction down the time, and it's just a better working model. I don't think everything is. I think a lot of learning things are worse online versus in person, but I actually am changing my tune. With golf, I've had a lot more success with people on doing more frequent contact with them online, because you can never run a business where you go, okay, I'm just going to book people for 15-minute lessons.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
yeah.
Right. And I really do like the mentality that you've kind of opened in my own mind just with the importance on the frequency of it. I think that's true in a lot of areas of life is to just stay more
Mhm.
consistent. You see better. I know like I used to be really into working out and I just knew that like I was going to get better results if I did 30 minutes every day rather than 2 hours every couple of days. It was just that consistency in it even with golf throughout the winter, it's probably the best thing that we can do in our journey and leading up to the spring is just trying to do a little something every day.
Yeah, and make sure and don't forget your putter. Don't forget, we haven't talked about your putter. We haven't talked about, you shouldn't just make total full swings inside. You can, I'd always bump my putter up against, I'd set down a couple of my alignment sticks and be working on my path, be working on my face angle, and stuff in there. So, same thing with the shorter launch stuff with, the chipping and the pitching stuff, you learn how to do all that. So yeah.
It's a really good point. I think it's very easy for golfers to forget about the putting, even though it makes up like half of our score.
I know, I know. Yeah, three clubs make up 82% of your driver, your wedge. Well, I mean, wedges should go in a category. I mean, the driver, the wedge, and the putter, right?
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, statistically, putting is 42%. The wedges are like 27, 28. You add in there. So yeah, I mean, you've never had a bad round when you go, wow, I drove it great. All my wedges were on point. I hit the green from 80 yards in every time. I got up and down and I putted well. You're not getting in your car and going, wow, that score stunk.
Yeah,
No, won't happen.
yeah, definitely. So, all right, we're getting near the end of the podcast now. Is there any kind of based off of what we've talked about today, is there anything you just want to leave the listeners with how they could practice this winter?
Yeah, well, hey, you can figure out me. I'm a rep guy. So get in the reps, have fun, and learn something about you. Put a mirror, go to Walmart, get a $15, 99-cent mirror, get a cheap mat, right? Learn to make some reps and make the swing in there. Build some confidence, build some trust, and build some vision in there. So, I did want to segue over and tell you that I missed a great opportunity. This is how stupid I am, okay? Because I was invited to play in a fundraiser last Saturday, and I really don't play much golf. I mean, I'm at the golf course 6 days a week, but I don't go play 18 holes right there. And so this guy invites me over to play in a charity thing right there. As soon as we get out there, I realized this guy had sponsored 3 teams, right? And so I don't know anybody, right? But I'm in the midst of all of these people talking just jump back and forth at each other. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, if I would have just known, you guys need the birdie board here, right?
Oh.
Because there was so much crap talking
Yeah.
going on between these things. And then they would drive from 2 holes over and come over and they would go, how are you guys playing? And I would have to whack the guy I was with because he was that sponsor. I go, shh, don't say a word, lie.
Yeah.
And he would go, oh, we're this many under. And I was like, no, you need to lie. And I was like, oh, wait, this is where, this would have been the perfect opportunity if everybody had this in there. Then there wouldn't have been any, hey, you could just check your app and go,
Yeah,
aha.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what Birdie Board's there for is tournaments and just fun matches like that. And it has all those fun stats on it that kind of tell you who had the best hole and who had the worst hole throughout the round. It's definitely fun for things like that.
Plus I could follow them up in front of me there and make sure that they weren't pencil whipping me either. I was like,
Exactly.
y'all posted a birdie, but unless I'm not counting wrong,
Exactly.
I
You can
think
hold them
it's not a
accountable.
call. Yeah, so
Awesome.
yeah, so yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
I appreciate your time. I love talking golf. I love your passion for golf. You guys are, I mean, I'm old. I just love you wanting to get in and get people involved with the birdie board and make sure that people are in there and people are learning and having fun because that's what we all go work hard, and I'm blessed that my job helps other people have more fun with their recreation, but I think golf is a great lifetime thing. And so, inside, outside, cold or warm, hey, keep us all happy.
there we go. I totally agree. That's one of my favorite things about golf. And I shared this in my very first podcast that I did is one of the things that got me into golf is the fact that it's cross-generational. And there was a time in my life where I was playing golf with my dad, my uncle, and my grandfather. And I was like, what other sport in the world can 3 different generations come and just do a sport together? And that was always so special to me.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, well, we just had our first grandbaby.
Oh,
So now I've already told my son. I said, hey, your daughter is playing golf.
I was gonna say it's not gonna be long. She'll end up being better than all of us.
She'll have a good start as soon as she can get 2 legs under and start walking, and we'll start swinging.
Exactly, exactly. Well, thanks again, Jeff, for joining. And that is this episode of the Birdie Board podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me, and have a great Christmas.
Thanks for tuning into the Birdie Board podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and share it with a friend who loves golf as much as you do. And before your next round, grab the Birdie Board app, free on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, and let it handle the scoring while you enjoy the game.